Welcome to the Killer Innovation Show, the longest continuously produced podcast in history. Each week, Phil McKinney brings you the insights and strategies to amplify your creativity and innovation skills. Here's your host, Phil McKinney.
Welcome to this week's Killer Innovations. I am on the road with my family. We're visiting family up in Washington State. I'm going to be on the road for, probably about a month or so, but I will still be doing the podcast, so don't go anywhere. We will continue to try to have as many of the regular weekly shows as possible. We pride ourselves on doing 50 original shows each and every year for the 18-year history we've had with Killer Innovations. So this week, though, this show is based on a reflection I had on this trip, thinking about what is it that brings me joy. You know, I'm past 60. I'm at a different stage in my career. I look at my kids and my grandkids and watching them discover what they want to do in their lives, their careers, my grandkids, early stages of grade school and middle school, what drives them, and them showing their interest in certain areas. And with kids, it's pretty simple. You can get them to do just about anything if it's something they want to do. If you're trying to force them to do something they don't like doing, it's a much bigger battle. Then this also plays out in the innovation space. What is it you enjoy doing? What brings you joy? In my case, the joy of innovation is what's been driven my career for the last 40 years. You know, that feeling of sense of accomplishment, the feeling of when something was delivered and became real. In my years as the chief technology officer at Hewlett Packard, I used to always say that the best motivation I could ever provide to an engineer at HP was to take their product and ship it. Because they could take their family into a Best Buy or Circuit City when Circuit City still existed. They could point out a product with their family standing there and going, "That's my product, and I kicked butt. That is a great product." And that was a huge, huge motivator, because once they had that sense of pride and excitement, the joy of delivering something new, that motivated them. That kept them going. So today's episode is about the joy of innovation. What is it? How do you find it? How do you nurture it? And what do you do when you've lost it? What are the things to look out for that are going to take away that joy? And what can you do to regain it, to put it back in place so that you can keep motivating yourselves through the arduous task of taking ideas and making it real? Now, before we jump into this week's episode, got that favor to ask. Follow, like, and share. Follow us on social media. Like this show so others can find it, and share it. If you know somebody that would benefit from hearing today's show, share it. Send them the link. Send them a note telling they can find us on every platform you can find a podcast on. You will find us. Let other people know. Help us spread the word. I would greatly appreciate it. And without further ado, let's jump into this week's episode. Recently, I've been doing a bunch of travel with my family. My wife and I have been on the road in our entertainer bus, visiting the grandkids, and just spending time trying to slow down and enjoy life. And it caused me to kind of sit back and reflect and think as I'm on the road about, well, what is joy? When you think about joy, how do you define it? The best definition I come across is joy is a feeling of great pleasure and happiness. You're happy. You feel good. It can be caused by things such as getting what you want. Did you get that new car, that job promotion, that new electronic gadget, that new house? What did you get? Did you get something that you really, really wanted for? It could come from succeeding at something. Did you make some big deliverable? Were you successful at a big presentation or speech in front of a large audience, or it comes from spending time with people you love. Now, nothing is more joyful for me than being able to hang out with my 5 grandkids, being able to just relax, not have things rattling around in the back of my head, constantly working about my to-do list. Just being able to disconnect, slow down, and enjoy that time. For many people, joy is one of the most important emotions because it makes life enjoyable. If you don't have joy in your life, I kind of wonder, boy, that's got to be tough to get through every day, every week, if you haven't found the thing that brings joy to you. So, but how do you find joy? If you don't have it, where do you find it? Well, there are many ways to find joy in life. Some people find it in their work. They just enjoy their work. They enjoy their peers, their coworkers. While others find it spending time with family and friends. Some people find joy in taking care of others, while others find it from being creative. You've got your painting you do, your photography. Maybe you make music on the side. You're part of a band, or learning new things. The joy of discovery, of reading about and learning about something that you just did not know about. No matter what makes you happy, make sure to enjoy as much of it as possible. Once you figure out what it is that it makes life enjoyable for you, latch onto that and do it as much as possible. Now, assuming you've found your joy, what can take it away? Well, there are many things. There are things such as disappointment. You try to achieve something and it didn't work out. Sadness. Maybe you've lost someone close to you. Anger. Somebody did something to you and you got angry and that took away your joy because you're so wrapped up on what they did and how angry it made you feel. And then stress. Stress can make us all feel unhappy and can prevent us from enjoying life. If we allow these negative emotions to take control, they can rob us of our joy. It is important to find ways to deal with these emotions so that they don't take away our happiness. Can you experience joy in innovation? That's the crux of today's question. What's the role of innovation in all of this? Can you experience joy in innovation? And the clear answer is yes. Yes, you can definitely experience joy in innovation. Innovation is all about creating new things and solving problems. And when you are able to do that successfully, it can make you feel really good, really great, knowing that inherent internal human ingenuity allowed you to create something that did not exist before. Being part of a successful innovation can make you feel proud, happy, excited, and it adds joy to your life. Now, in my case, it is that feeling of joy that is the drug that I found early in my career. Having that experience in some of the earliest projects, fresh out in my first real jobs, the thrill of creating, inventing something that became real, and the response it triggered from other people, the praise and adulation and congratulations, and that drug of joy is what has motivated me for the 40 years of my career to continue to go at it, invent the next thing, invent the next thing. Now, there's loads of examples out there about where you can experience joy in innovation. It could be when you come up with a new idea that solves a problem, or when you see an idea being put into use, or when you receive this positive feedback. When you're able to make a difference in the world through your innovation, it can be really rewarding and joyful. Now, I've had lots of experience over my life of inventing a large number of things. I've lost track of how many innovations I've brought to market over my 40 plus year career. And I'm just going to talk about two here today on what are those two and what was the feeling. And these are two ideas I really haven't talked a lot about, but want to give you kind of a sense of that emotion of joy that came from these inventions that then resulted in being just throwing more fuel onto the fire that's driven my career to achieve innovation success. The first one up is when I was back, and this has got to be 1985, I'm going to guess, 86, when I led the development of one of the first biometric security devices. This was a fingerprint reader for a company called ThumbScan. Originally, I was contracted to take what effectively was the back of a napkin idea and turn it into a real product. Now, it started off as a contract. Eventually, this company got funded by Frontenac Venture Capital out of Chicago, and Frontenac convinced me to sell my consulting practice and become part of the leadership team that they funded back when they first round of funding for ThumbScan. So this was a fingerprint biometric device, basically taking video images of fingerprints pressed onto the top of this device, analyzing it, and looking it through a catalog of fingerprints, and then coming back and saying that's a match or it's not a match. And doing this all for a product that was less than $1,000. This is $1,000 in 1985, $1986. At that time, fingerprint devices that were there were all government related, and they were in the tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So taking a technology and developing it and delivering it for 1/10 of the current market price. And so, we did it. We actually made it work. We used a variety of new concepts. We used CCD silicon. These are the silicon that goes into your cameras, even in your phones today, but back then they were bigger. We got Sony to give us or sell us some of the CCD elements, that high resolution at that time. This is pre-HD, remember? And using that as part of the image capture, we developed a whole slew of software to do the pattern recognition. And I can tell you, though, that experience the first time when we had it built into a product and watching people use it to secure corporate networks, to use it to secure PCs. And then eventually, the U.S. government came in and bought a slew of these and repackaged it and used it to secure, not what I would call top secret or black level code word kinds of information, but in the secret to top secret categories of rooms, buildings, file safes, computer networks. And it became pretty exciting when people looked at this, used it, and then asked how much was this going to cost? And it was 1/10 the cost. And it drove an adoption rate that was just, crazy. Eventually, ThumbScan was acquired by another company, Cominvest AB out of Stockholm, that was doing a bunch of work with NATO around secure information security back in the mid 80s. But that thrill of seeing people look at it, and to them it looked like magic. Question I always got was, how did you do this? How did you make this happen? What's the secrets behind this thing? How does it work so fast and you can do it at such a cost-effective means compared to everything else that we have to purchase? Those kinds of questions, when people bestow upon you that feeling that you're a magician, you've done something that nobody thought was possible, in this case, at 1/10 the price of any other provider in the marketplace. And in this case, the thrill of being in those early stages of making people's lives and people's information more secure. So it wasn't just about, hey, I can sell lots of these devices, but we were doing good. We were on a mission, and we delivered something that nobody thought could ever be invented and done at the price point and at the effectiveness and the performance that this thing operated at. And that was the big thrill. And that little kind of kicker was like, woohoo, okay, This is exciting. I want to go repeat this. I want to go do this again. And so what did I do? I did it again. The next innovation that I worked on after a ThumbScan was sold to CommonVest was working on a supercomputer project at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. There was a researcher that had developed a concept of massively parallel supercomputers. So this is a computer that had lots and lots and lots of processors. And as you would write your programs to run on these big supercomputers, it sliced down the program into these little bitty pieces and fed them to tens and then hundreds and then thousands. And today it's tens of thousands of processors. What was unique about this, though, is it was a new processing architecture called MISC, M-I-S-C. So the MISC processing architecture, or minimal instruction set computing, was a completely breakthrough architecture compared to today. An Intel processor is what's called a CISC processor, complex instruction set computing, or RISC, which HP and others were really the crux behind RISC, which was reduced instruction set computing. Trying to simplify the processors, drive more power was really the concept. MISC, radical architecture. And when we came out with this new computing architecture, and again, there was just some early concept work done, it was taking that early concept work, which I have found over my career, that what you come up in the original early concept is not what actually gets delivered. In many cases, the early concepts, the nugget of an idea, you think you know how it's going to work, and guess what? That is not how it's going to work or how it gets delivered. So in this case, we took this and developed a completely new computing architecture, MISC, and we drove a huge amount of interest. Lots of articles were written about the MISC architecture and how this was going to transform supercomputing architecture. But keep in mind that now this is in the late 80s in Urbana-Champaign, Illinois. It was some joint work with some professors at the University of Illinois that were doing work on parallel compiler technologies, and we developed this computing platform. Ultimately, it got acquired by Atmel. So Atmel still exists. It's been acquired a couple times since then, but the fundamental MISC architecture was acquired by Atmel and used in their computing platforms to transform the ability to support very, very fast computing technologies, very, very low cost, very, very low power. But again, this is a case where we took what was on the back of a napkin and fundamentally the idea didn't work based on what was written down. And instead, we transformed it into a fundamentally working project. And that transformation and that delivery, and then getting the confirmation from the news, and then ultimately seeing it become real, and then it being acquired by a company to commercially deliver it at scale, that was exciting. It was unbelievably exciting to see something that we worked so long and so hard on to become real. And again, it brought joy to me to the point of that became another feeder. So I had a couple of wins under my belt at this point, and I wanted to repeat it because I love the feeling of seeing people's eyes when you can show something that was nothing becoming something that gets used, that becomes a reality, and people get excited about it. And again, it was back to the point of when we first rolled this out and people first looked at it and started using it. They're like, how did you come up with this idea? How did you make this real? This is unbelievable. Nobody's thought of this before. This is so different. That became kind of that feedback loop that I was after, that constantly has driven me to achieve success for my innovation career. Now, can you lose your joy from innovation? If you think about, okay, I've had a couple of wins, but not life doesn't always keep giving you home runs, right? You're gonna hit a couple singles and doubles, and you're going to have some things that blow up in your face. But when I look back on my career, what are the things that take away the joy of innovation? And in some cases, not only does it take away the joy of innovation, it reduces the likelihood that you're going to have success. Well, first up is by experiencing too much stress. When you're stressed, when you feel like you get under a huge amount of pressure, it can be difficult to focus on anything else, including the work that's going to make it successful. This can lead to frustration. It can take away the joy of your work. And it's especially true for those who work in fields that require creativity and innovation, such as graphic design, writing, invention. Feeling overwhelmed and under constant pressure can take the joy out of what it is we do and make it difficult, almost impossible, to be creative. Another area that can take joy away is when we feel like our work is not meaningful. We don't feel like it's not important. This can happen when we're not passionate about what we're doing. When we feel like our work is pointless. What's the reason that we're doing this? Why? Well, it's not going to change people's lives. It can happen when you're not recognized for your hard work or contribution. It can lead to a feeling of being discouraged, and it makes it just really hard to think about doing the things necessary to achieve success. When we're not challenged is another area, right? This can happen when we're bored with our work or when we feel like we're not learning anything new. It can also happen when we're not given the opportunity to use our skills and abilities to their full potential, when we're not being really pushed. This can lead to a feeling of, just being stagnated, and makes it hard to enjoy what we're doing. Another is when we're not supported. This can happen when we don't have the resources we need, not enough people, money, time, whatever it is. It can also happen when we don't feel like have a good work-life balance. Now, I don't like work-life balance because there is no balance. There's times that work will dominate, but there needs to be times when life dominates. There's no magic middle ground where everything gets into a balance and stays there. Trust me, 40 years of trying to find that magic work-life balance, it does not exist. And this can lead to feelings of frustration and burnout. And again, it makes it hard to find any kind of joy. Another one is when you're not appreciated. This happens when you feel like others don't value or appreciate your work. It can also happen when we don't feel like they give us the credit for our ideas or contributions. Credit is one of those very touchy emotional issues that I even deal with today with my teams on making sure that people feel like they're getting the acknowledgement and the credit. And believe me, there's more than enough people that want to take credit for really good ideas. And if you don't give that credit, and if you don't feel like people are recognizing the contribution, then you kind of get this feeling of being devalued. And again, it makes it hard to be joyful. Now, these are just a few what I have found over my career that might lose joy in your work. It's important to remember that these things are often beyond your control and that finding joy in your work is not always easy. But it's possible. You can find joy in your work by making just a few changes in your mindset and your approach. Here are a few tips that I've applied over my career. Hopefully you will find them useful. 1, make a list of things you love about your job. This can help you remember why you chose this career in the first place and why you're good at it. Come up with the 5 things that you love about your job. Put it on the wall, put it in your cube, put it on a post-it note on the dash of your car, and look at them. Remind yourself. It's easy for us to get kind of caught up in the doldrums, but let's remember why we do what we do. 2, set small goals for yourself and celebrate when you reach them. This can help give you a sense of accomplishment rather than waiting for the big win. In my case, in my current role as a CEO, our organization, many of our ideas we will not see in the marketplace for 3, 4, 5, 6 years out in the future. Hard to keep teams motivated. So you have to find the interim. What are the shorter term goals that you can achieve to show progress and celebrate those? One of the reasons why I'm such a big believer of using OKRs, objectives and key results. And there's a whole podcast on OKRs. Feel free to hop over to Killer Innovations and check that out. Number 3, find a mentor or role model who loves their work. That gives you perspective. Everybody kind of thinks about your life and how you're doing it. Look, we've all had the same frustrations. You know, I've had more failures and things blowing up in my face and projects not working out, and I've been fired from jobs, right? So, look, we've all been there. Nobody's got the magic, solution answer. We've all been in the same boat. But find a mentor role model who loves their work, and they can help you kind of get a perspective, see the potential for joy in your own career. What are they doing, and what can you do to bring joy? 4, take a break when you're feeling overwhelmed. This can help you clear your head and come back to your work refreshed. I am taking 5 weeks off. I'm trying to unplug as much as possible. I'm still doing the podcast because that's my creative outlet, but I am trying to unplug as much as possible, if not completely, for 5 weeks. That's my kind of refresh rate, get my brain cleared, and get myself calibrated. And then last but not least, talk to your friends and family about your work. I have a couple of friends, one in Atlanta, one in Silicon Valley, who I email quite regularly about things I'm doing, getting their feedback, their input on what it is I'm doing on the outside of my day job. So this involves I've been approached to teach a course at a college, which I'm seriously thinking about doing, and some other projects that I've got going on. And these two are the sounding boards. They're not afraid to yell BS and tell me what I'm doing is crap or it's a waste of time or whatever, or encouraging me like, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. Go do that. That's perfect. Blah, 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 blah. Get those close friends and families who will tell you the truth, but also have your back. That is important. And then, again, look, finding joy in your work is not always easy. It is, but it's possible. We may think it's not possible, but trust me, it is. And you can find the joy of innovation again. Listen, since I was a kid, I've loved tinkering and building things. My parents would often find me in the basement taking apart some old appliance, some cases a new appliance, which really upset my mom, taking apart and trying to put together some new contraption. I was wanting to always build robots as a kid. That was kind of my thing. I was always interested in how things worked and loved finding new ways to do things. This curiosity led me to a career in innovation, where I've been able to find joy in creating new things and solving problems. If you're interested in innovation, I encourage you to find what makes you happy and pursue it. There is nothing more rewarding than being part of something that makes a difference in the world. So, do you have your joy of innovation? Do you still have it? Or have you lost it? Or are you still trying to find it for the first time? Hopefully, this show gives you some tools to think about. What is it? What does it feel like? What are the things that you need to make sure are in place? And what are the things to be on guard for that can take it away? And then how do you find it? How do you find it again? Now, I can give you the perspective that over my career, I've lost it a couple times. I've had the joy of innovation, and then I've gotten into a job that was a grind, a rut, kind of just move, turning the crank on the factory. And that was kind of early in the career because I thought I needed the job versus was it something I really, really wanted to do? And I found out that, guess what? It doesn't matter how much you think you need the job. You get caught in that grind, life is miserable. And being disciplined and knowing what you want to do and knowing what does bring you joy, whether it's joy in your innovation work or joy in your family, or joy in other ways. Find what brings joy to your life and then do it. Do as much of it as possible. Would love to hear your feedback on today's show. Was this helpful? Did it open up your eyes maybe a little bit? Is it challenging you to think a little bit differently about what it is you want to do that brings joy to you and others around you? And again, I'd love to hear that feedback. As always, we are always open to answering any questions you might have. Send them in. You can hop over to killerinnovations.com and click the contact option up on the menu and send us in a note or a question that you would want us to address, or a question even about today's episode that you think that you don't agree with, or you do agree with, or you need more clarification about what I meant. So let us know. We'd love to hear from you. And again, we are on the road, so I do apologize. We are trying a new approach to recording this audio to make it a little bit easier to do the show while I'm in the bus on the road. And so we will try and see how this sounds, and love your feedback on that also. It would allow us to actually keep up and keep up on the number of shows that we have to produce each and every month and year. So again, let us know. And with that, I want to thank you for your time. Time is the most valuable asset you have, and you have chosen to spend that time with us, and I do greatly, greatly appreciate it. And my encouragement to you this week is find what gives you joy and do as much of it as possible. And with that, we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Podcasting nonstop since 2005, this has been the Killer Innovation Show on the Innovators Network.